I know I've said it a million times before, but I love Danganronpa. You take a handful of high school students, you trap them somewhere, and you see how long it takes them to start killing each other. You throw some dark humor in the middle of it all, and you have a winning formula. But I'll be the first to admit that they're not perfect games. I think there can be too much fan service, and the plot can be pretty repetitive. There's a lot of recurring story beats in these games. They're not big enough problems that I dislike the series, just, my interest has waned a bit. But there is one more Danganronpa game worth talking about. I think it's fair to say it's the most divisive game among the fan base. At least the ending is polarizing, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. Today we're gonna look at what might be the final game in the series, Danganronpa V3: Killing Harmony. This game was released for the PS4, Vita, and PC in 2017, but it was first announced all the way back in 2013 at the same time as the Ultra Despair Girls spin-off. In Japan, the game is titled New Danganronpa V3 because this game was meant to usher in a new era for the series. They wanted the game to take place in a different school with no substantial connection to the previous games, save for Monokuma, I guess. And that's a pretty good sign to me that they're not gonna be relying on the same plot points and characters that they always go back to. I guess they really couldn't rely on the same old characters and stuff after the whole Hope's Peak storyline was pretty much resolved by the Danganronpa 3 anime anyways. And without spoiling it completely, if you're curious on how the Danganronpa 3 anime went, just know that all your favorite characters had a happy ending. I gotta say though, it's a bit weird that the anime is named Danganronpa 3, but this new game is as well. Huh.
What a coincidence!
Anyways, this is the latest mainline game in the series as of the date this video was uploaded, and it seemed like both Spike Chunsoft and series creator Kazutaka Kodaka wanted to give the game a break. I think the reason for that can be found within the game, so without any more stalling, let's just see what it's all about. Starting with the title screen as always, there's no character portraits or little pixel arts of everyone in the game this time. It's just a screen with a building that says Team Danganronpa on it, along with a lot of locked options as usual. It's the same old same old. Upon starting a new game, you're greeted with an intro that shows scenes from the games prior. There's some clips from Trigger Happy Havoc, some from Goodbye Despair, Ultra Despair Girls, and even the Danganronpa 3 anime. But then it gets real ominous and says there's still more to come. I'm interested. Then we're introduced to our protagonist for this game, Kaede Akamatsu. She wakes up from a locker that's located in the corner of a classroom that's filled with overgrown plants. And after getting a sense of her surroundings, another student named Shuichi emerges from a locker that was next to hers. All they can really remember is being kidnapped and going unconscious, and wanting to leave, they exit the classroom, but as soon as they do, they come across these giant robots called exosols that start hunting them down, and they get chased all the way to a gymnasium where some other characters already are. Kaede starts to talk to them, and they try to assess the situation, but it's not long before those exosols appear again, and reveal they're being piloted by 5 little Monokuma lookalikes called Monocubs. But the Monocubs themselves realize something is wrong here, because none of these characters can remember their ultimate talents. Then the Monocubs give everyone a makeover, and the game starts all over again. Kaede exits from a locker again, and so does Shuichi, but this time around they seem to know exactly what their talents are. Kaede is the ultimate pianist, and Shuichi the ultimate detective. There's no Monocubs and Exosols chasing you around this time either. Now they're much less hostile, and explain you're all students of the Ultimate Academy. As you might have expected, you're locked in a school again, but at least you can explore the campus this time. And then, after introducing yourself to all the characters, everyone's told to meet up in the gym, where you-know-who, Monokuma, finally makes an appearance and explains the rules of the killing game. You gotta kill someone covertly, you gotta defend yourself in a class trial that's held to find the killer, and repeat until either someone wins or there's not enough players to continue the game. And this is just about where the prologue ends. I skipped a bit there because for the most part, we know how this all begins. Ultimate talents have been explained before, and so have the killing games, but man, they really hit the ground running here. Not 2 seconds into the game, and you're already running for your life from these giant death machines. After the intro, you'll just spot them around the academy doing their thing.
Exosols, assemble!
The Academy is a really nice setting for the killing game, by the way. It's definitely a step up from Jabberwock Island, and I'd go as far to say I prefer it over Hope's Peak as well. The first couple floors of the Academy are just filled top to bottom with all this tall grass and all these plants, and it makes you wonder, what's the story of this place? Why was it abandoned? It really piques your interest just walking around the school. As the game progresses, you'll see the grass and campus has been cleaned up a bit thanks to the Exisauce. And this is the creepiest location for a killing game so far too. There was just something about turning each corner in this game and the way some of these rooms were designed that were really off-putting to me. But in a good way, like someone could be ready to just stab you in the back at any moment. And not that I was expecting to be jump scared or anything, because that's never been a thing in Danganronpa, but I think it's a testament to how well designed this school is that I was genuinely spooked out at points. There's a moment later in the story when some of the students form a cult and they choose to convene on this one floor that's straight out of Fatal Frame or something. And there's a part where you do a seance to speak to the dead, and that also happens on this floor. And I was constantly checking my back walking around this place. Just like in the last two games, you start unlocking new floors of the school as the story progresses, but instead of new floors being gated off like before, there's these interactable objects you'll come across in the school that you need to use the right item on. Once you do, an adjacent wall usually gets busted down or something, and the school opens up some more. But remember, you're free to walk around the Academy's entire campus, so explore new locations outside of the school as well. There's a point very early on in the story where the students come across what looks like a secret exit to leave the school early, but that's just Monokuma toying with you again. There's no way to win this minigame. And visually, I feel like this is the most ambitious a Danganronpa game has ever been, and that's saying something considering how unique the art style already is. Some of these cutscenes and CG art just look like nothing I've ever seen in Danganronpa before. Like that sequence at the beginning of the game where Kaede regained her memories, and all these other moments in the game where they get real experimental, but it pays off big time because this game is so freaking pretty to look at. Sometimes. I did spot some artwork that had me questioning what the hell I was looking at. Like, what is this baby Kaede? For every gorgeous CG, there was an ugly one. For every cool looking sprite, there was a funky looking one. It's puzzling to me how this game can knock it out of the park and wow me with all these unique new pieces, but the art kinda fumbles when it comes to the stuff they've been doing for years suddenly not looking so good. I'm trying to think, like maybe the game was a little rushed and they had to cut corners somewhere and decided the art was the best place to do so? I don't know, that's all speculation. I just know that a lot of this art is unfortunately not up to par for Danganronpa. But you know, if there is one thing Danganronpa will keep improving on, it's the class trials. I'm just gonna come right out and say it, V3 has the best class trials of the series, and frankly it's not even close. It basically takes everything 2 improved on and goes even further. It still feels like everyone contributes a fair bit to each of these trials instead of you having to carry their useless asses like in Trigger Happy Havoc, and trials are still a decent length in this game too. They do a good job of going over all possible explanations for every single happenstance, and the mysteries surrounding each murder are not only full of these amazing twists, but the game gets so creative with the scenarios of these murders as well. Like, what about a case where the murder was actually supposed to be a resurrection ritual? Or what about a case where the murder was carried out in a virtual world? Each of these murders had my interest from start to finish. Of course, the minigames return, and I think they've gotten better as well. The basic minigame, Non-Stop Debates, plays the same as it always did. You gotta use your truth bullets to shoot at iffy statements from other students. I don't think you can really do much to improve this mode, but there is one minor change here in that you can click and hold while certain truth bullets are equipped to commit perjury on the stand now. Previously, clicking and holding would take a statement from someone else and add it to your repertoire of truth bullets, but here you keep the same truth bullet, you just gotta use it as a lie to fight fire with fire and get a real answer out of someone. And there's this new minigame called Mass Panic Debates where multiple characters are screaming at once and you have to pay attention to all these testimonies and call out the right person, but it still mostly plays the same as Non-Stop Debates. The rebuttal showdowns are back, and they played the same as well. Remember, these are the ones where someone would argue against your contradiction and you'd have to prove why what you said was the right thing all along. And there's one more new debate minigame called Debate Scrums. These occur when everyone is split on something and you need to argue each point by using multiple characters. The trick is to look for a keyword the opposing team says and use the bullet featuring that word against them. It's pretty easy stuff. Hangman's Gambit returns for a third time, and I believe it's at its best here. The catch this time is that you have to wait for the letters to be illuminated so you know which ones you're selecting. But there's no more of that pointlessly having to wait for 2 letters to connect before you're allowed to select it, or taking force damage because the board just turns into a clusterfuck. Just choose the right letters to spell out the right word, and that's as simple as it should be. There's a few new minigames I'm a big fan of too. The first one is called Psych Taxi and basically replaces that minigame from 2 that reminded me of Run. Here you drive down a long stretch of road and collect these Mario Kart item boxes until the game asks you a question about the murder case, and you choose the right answer by picking these girls up. Answer wrong and you murder them in cold blood. One of the other new minigames is this little puzzle game called Mind Mime. You just have to clear this board of blocks to get to whatever object is hidden behind them. You do this by choosing a set of blocks that are connected by color, and for a little challenge, all the adjacent blocks change to another color. Sometimes you won't be able to get rid of all of them that are blocking the answer, and you'll have to take out single blocks individually, and the game does penalize you for that. But you only lose like 10 seconds on the timer, not health or anything, so who cares? And the final new game would be the rhythm games called Argument Armaments. Just like before, these happen at the end of the trial when the killer or someone who knows something crucial is on the ropes. There's no gimmicks this time either, like holding the button over multiple beats. Just press the right button when the bar is filled up. And notice I said when the bar is filled up instead of timing your button presses to the beat, because the button presses are not synced to the music at all in this game. Not even to the gavel that's constantly hammering in the back. Man, if it's not one thing, it's another with these rhythm minigames. Still though, it's not hard to keep a combo. You can get through these easy enough. And of course, the closing arguments return as well. It's the same as before, just place the right events into the right boxes to recap the timeline of the murder. And when it's all said and done, you get to see those execution cutscenes for the murderers. These minigames are fun as always, and none of them were annoying, they just keep getting bigger and better. You know, I'm convinced now that these class trials absolutely need that antagonistic wildcard to fuck up everyone's trains of thought too. Danganronpa 1 had no one in particular, but 2 had Nagito, and he absolutely stole the show as far as these class trials went. And thankfully V3 has a Nagito of its own and this little edgelord named Kokichi. He's one of those characters who knows more than they let on. He often goes on his own little adventures and finds crucial information to use in the class trials, but they never make him so smart a character that it feels like he's directing the entire thing. He doesn't outright know the culprit to every trial, nor does he have an answer to every question, but he knows enough to throw a wrench in these conversations that can make everyone question, wait, is that really what happened? This game made me realize I really enjoy these types of characters. Sadly though, I can't really say I enjoyed the rest of the cast in V3. There's a handful of decent and likable characters in V3, but there's also a good bunch of characters that fall into the forgettable category for me. I guess we can do one final rundown of all the characters. Starting things off, we have our player character and the ultimate pianist, Kaede. She's a bit of a first for the series. Not only is she the first playable female character in a real Danganronpa game, but she also manages to be the first protag that's not an ultimate hope. Yeah, there's nothing special or unique about Kaede. She's just really good at the piano. As far as her actual character goes, well, I enjoyed her for what she was. She might not have been an ultimate hope or anything, but she still remained an optimistic character and was able to rally everyone together in their moments of strife. And even when she was feeling doubtful about something, or she was in a bad mood herself, she still remained level-headed and reasonable. I think she's my favorite protagonist. But then we have Shuichi. He's pretty much Kaede's closest ally. I enjoyed the chemistry between these two a lot. You see, despite Shuichi being an incredibly observant and sharp guy, he even solves the first class trial long before anyone else. He's not entirely confident in himself as the ultimate detective. He has a fear to reveal the truth because he's afraid of the consequences that could bring to either himself or whoever else is connected to the case. But over the course of V3, Kaede basically helps him realize that he needs needs to be more confident in himself as the ultimate detective. He also wears a hat sometimes. Our next character is Maki, the ultimate assassin. In the beginning of the game, she lies and tells you her talent is the ultimate babysitter or something, but that's revealed to be a lie pretty early on. I think she's one of the more cliche characters in the entire game. She's cold and standoffish, but she actually does have feelings deep down, and children naturally love her, and she's somehow good at everything. I didn't hate her, I didn't love her, I just thought she was bland. Another character I wasn't a big fan of was Kaito, the ultimate astronaut. He's another one of those characters who always has a platitude to say or some speech about what it means to be a man and never giving up in the face of despair or adversity and believing in your friends. He's pretty abrasive and has a self-righteous attitude. He puts emotions over logic, but that's part of his character, and he does bring some much-needed cheerfulness to the gang when they're at their lowest. But at the same time, I feel like the game is forcing me to like this guy. He gets a lot of screen time, he comes up with cute nicknames, he helps Shuichi to become a man, he breaks Maki out of her shell. I mean, this guy can do anything. I don't think he's poorly written. I just wish someone in the game would have called him out now and then instead of constantly acting like he's this special guy who's the glue of the team, when really he gets them into trouble on more than one occasion. Kokichi kind of does, but the game goes out of its way to tell you that Kokichi is the bad guy between these two, and doesn't make him a very sympathetic character at all. I'll rant about Kokichi next. He's the ultimate supreme leader and a chronic liar. I definitely like him more than Kaito. Like I said before, I think he's a great antagonist for the class trials, and that's true for the rest of the game as well. He's a little miscreant, a little troublemaker, he's always getting into some mischief, you know? But the game is a little too on the nose with his character. There's a part where he straight up monologues about being evil and enjoying the killing game for what it is, but I already know this through playing the game. They didn't have to spell out Kokichi as the bad guy, and you shouldn't root for him like this. I know Kokichi's evil because he goes out of his way to give everyone a hard time. He manipulates students. He steals from everyone. I mean, I'm not one to say writers have to abide by these hard and fast rules of writing a story, but I think the most basic one was broken with this speech. Show, don't tell. Still though, I like Kokichi. I'm not so big on his outfit, but you know who does have a great design is Kirumi, the ultimate maid. I liked her because she was a really laid-back character despite the fact that she was obligated to complete almost any task asked of her. But unfortunately, she did kind of feel like a filler character just here to pad the cast, and unfortunately she won't be the last. She's just kinda there, you know? She comes and goes periodically. If she had someone to play off of, then maybe I'd remember her better. The only memorable back and forth I can recall her having with anyone is Kokichi asking her to be his mommy. That was funny, but the joke came and went. Another character I liked was Ryoma, the ultimate tennis pro, and he felt pretty filler as well. He doesn't have much reason to live and is willing to cooperate with the killer if they want to use him as a victim or whatever. But a character I really liked was Himiko, the ultimate mage. She's the comic relief of the game, and she's really the ultimate magician, but has the belief that all of her tricks are genuine feats of magic, so she prefers to be called a mage. And I'm not gonna argue against her, man, she's too cute to break the truth to. She's also the embodiment of laziness. She's just another go-with-the-flow kind of chick. That gets her to join a cult though, so you know, we gotta nip that in the bud. Something happens to her mid-game that makes her more determined to exit the killing game, but more than anyone else, I wanted Himiko to survive the killing game. Next we have Rentaro, another ultimate student who doesn't know their true talent, despite the Monokubs giving everyone their memories back. He seems to know more about the circumstances of the killing game than he lets on, and I'm gonna leave it at that. Here's a bad one, Tenko, the ultimate Aikido master. She's my hero 2.0, but cranked to 11. Every line that comes out of her mouth is degenerate male, I hate men, men can't be trusted. That's funny every once in a while, but she has very little character or anything worthwhile to say besides that. Her only redeeming trait is that she loves and wants the best for Himiko, who in this case would be Hyoko, but you know, Himiko is not an evil little turd. Next is Gonta. I like this guy a lot. He's the ultimate entomologist. Like Tarzan, he was raised in the wilderness by wolves and learned to speak with animals and insects. This also gave him some freak strength, but eventually he was reintroduced into civilization and learned to become a gentleman. But he's not the smartest guy. He does his best not to give into his animalistic urges, but of course his brute strength and low intelligence is taken advantage of by you-know-who. Oh, and here's a snooze fest, Tsumugi, the ultimate cosplayer. I am not exaggerating when I tell you Tsumugi is the most boring character in the entire series. She doesn't get in anyone's way. She does nothing. She's just another character who is there to fill out the cast. What is there to say about her? She talks like Princess Peach, her hair is blue. Oh, here's something fun about her. She's fine when cosplaying as fictional characters, but her skin turns pink when she cosplays as real people. She never cosplays as anyone ever though, so cool. Thankfully, V3 has a character that's the polar opposite of everything that's wrong with Tsumugi, Angie, the ultimate artist. She believes in some all-loving god named Atua and convinces some other characters to believe in him as well, including but not limited to Gonta and Himiko. She gets in everyone's shit, going as far as destroying things that could help everyone to regain their lost memories, and placing a curfew on everyone so they're no longer allowed to leave their dorms after certain hours. She brings some much needed chaos to the killing game when Kokichi isn't around to do his thing. Next, there's Korekiyo, the ultimate anthropologist, another character with a really cool design. I thought he was really creepy in the way he talks and postures, but he proves himself to be a valuable character. As someone who studies cultures and how everyone behaves, he's able to offer a different perspective on certain things. He has a really fucked up backstory too. Let's just say there's a reason why he wears that mask. And then there's Miyu, the ultimate inventor. She's a foul-mouthed young lady whose every line is a sex joke. It's annoying when she's in a scene for too long, but she crumples at any pushback, and I thought that was a funny way to shut her up. And finally, we have K1B0, or Kibo, the ultimate robot. I thought he was one of the highlights. He gets picked on a lot by robophobic individuals, but he proves himself to be useful multiple times throughout the game. He's part flashlight, part camera, part audio recording device, and once he gets his armaments, he proves to be more than useful in a fight. I guess he has a thing with Miyu or something as well. She grows a special interest in him for being a robot and likes tinkering with his body. And that would be the entire cast of V3. I'd place them below both 1 and 2's cast. I think this game regresses from what Danganronpa 2 did so well in giving everyone a little time to shine in the spotlight. This game really only cares about developing the 6 most important core characters: Kaede, Shuichi, Kaito, Maki, Kokichi, and Kibo. And I'm not asking that everyone gets the whole Fuyuhiko treatment, but I would have appreciated something that made me care more about any of these characters. The game does try to give a lot of these characters some depth, but they still somehow manage to be bland. They're straight up unlikable. I mean, they all have a strong concrete goal of escaping the killing game. Methods may vary. They have intriguing backstories, and they all have their flaws. They have the prerequisites of what should make for fascinating characters, but I still didn't care about any of them. It's like when they were being created, someone had a list next to them of what's supposed to make an interesting character, and they just checked it off as they went along. But rarely would the game actually take a second to try and make you care about anyone. Yeah, you might get some glimpses of their personalities in the dialogue, and you can get some more backstory in the free time events, but I never truly felt captivated by anyone in this game. I really didn't care who lived or died besides like Kaede, Shuichi, and Himiko. And that's only because Himiko was funny, not because the game gave me any legitimate reason to care about her. I think another large reason why I didn't care about a lot of this cast is because they really are just rehashes of characters we've had in games prior. We've already had an ultimate detective that manages to solve the cases long before anyone else. We've already had overly optimistic characters that can seemingly bond anyone together no matter what they're going through. We've already had the hypersexual comic relief that can't stop themselves from talking about everyone doing each other for 5 seconds. We've already had the man-hater. We've already had the man-hater's crush. We've already had the one who knows more than they let on. We've already had the robot. We've already had the stiff character who slowly works towards being friendly with everyone. We've already had the big, scary, intimidating character who turns out to be a sweetheart. And we've already had a friendly character who turns out to be the mastermind behind the killing game. Oh, did I forget to mention one of these guys is a traitor and controlling the entire killing game from behind the scenes. I really got the feeling that Kodaka just wanted another stab at a lot of these archetypes, which I'm fine with, but the only characters who I thought got interesting spins were Shuichi because unlike Kyoko, he has a lot of self-doubt, and Kibo because unlike Nekomaru, he has practical features that are useful in the class trials. But there is one good thing I can say about this cast. V3 takes a step back in everyone being all friendly with each other. Like, remember in Danganronpa 2, there was a real jolly vibe between everyone, despite them being stuck in a killing game with each other. But V3 says, wait a second, maybe you guys shouldn't be all buddy-buddy with each other. Characters are back to being distrustful of each other, and that's where Danganronpa is at its funnest. When everyone's tense being in the same room with each other, and you have no idea who's going to snap next. But at the same time, it's not all doom and gloom either. There are still moments of everyone getting along and working together. I think V3 strikes a nice balance between leaving you scared for your life and still hopeful that, maybe you guys can work together and escape from this killing game. Danganronpa 2's mistake was going on the complete other end of the spectrum and making the killing game feel like an afterthought. Since I'm talking about characters, I can speak a little bit more about the Mono Cubs as well. So these guys would be Monokuma's children, don't ask me who their mother is, and in their own words, they're the new mascots of V3. In 2 we had Usami the rabbit, who Monokuma reformed in his image as his sister Monami, but here we have Mono Kid, Monosuke, Mono Dam, Mono Fini, and Mono Taro. They are a pointless addition to the game and the least funny characters in Danganronpa to date. Every joke that comes from them is either an anime reference, or a video game reference, or a topical 2016 politics reference, and there's multiple incest storylines between these guys for some reason. I'm not joking when I say there's a lot of incest in this game. But hey, at least one of them dies after each trial. I thought it was fun to see them get executed. They also stage an uprising against Monokuma at one point, and actually run the killing game without him, but that doesn't last very long. And I suppose I've mentioned just about everything that's important now, except for how the story ends. The big reveal that divided the fan base, We're getting into spoiler territory now, so if you don't want to see how the story ends, well, Okay, so remember when I mentioned there being a traitor mastermind before? Well, right in the very first chapter of the game, Kaede and Shuichi come up with a plan to out them by setting up cameras around this hidden door they found in the library that they theorize belongs to the mastermind. And the plan works. The camera snaps a photo of Rantaro using the hidden door, but when Kaede and Shuichi go to the library to confront him, they find him dead. So a trial is held to find out who the killer is, and here's the first big twist of many. It turns out to be none other than Kaede all along. All throughout the first chapter, Kaede was doing things under both Shuichi's and the player's nose, setting up a trap that involved rolling a shot put ball in a specific manner to kill the mastermind all along. And after outing her as a culprit, you spend the rest of the game playing as Shuichi. I probably didn't fool anyone, but I really tried to keep that under wraps. You also figure out Rantaro wasn't the mastermind, but he still knew about that hidden door in the library somehow. So as usual, some time passes, some more people die in the trials, and you get more flashback lights where you find out, the world ended. Basically, a bunch of meteorites started crashing into the Earth, and in an effort to preserve some of humanity's brightest minds, 16 Ultimate students were sent into space as something called the Gopher Project. But because this is Danganronpa and no plan can go off without a hitch, an extremist cult thought it would be a good idea to hunt down the Ultimates and kill them so they couldn't go into space. And it's around this time they're finally sent into space and are put into a deep sleep for hundreds of years. But again, because no plan in Danganronpa ends well, it turns out the leader of the cult that organized the hunt on all the Ultimate students was one of the students who was sent into space as well. That very same person is the one behind the killing game. That person is the one controlling Monokuma, and it turns out to be none other than the one you expected the least because it's the one you expected the most. Kokichi is the mastermind. He never met Junko, but he loves her ideology of despair all the same. When the truth all comes out and it's revealed to everyone in the penultimate chapter of the game that this killing game takes place on a spaceship that re-landed on Earth after hundreds of years have passed, there's 7 survivors left: Shuichi, Kibo, Himiko, Maki, Tsumugi, Kaito, and of course, Kokichi. And Kaito actually ends up killing Kokichi in a plan by Kokichi to end the killing game because, here comes another big twist, Kokichi wasn't running the killing game at all. That was just another one of his lies that the person actually controlling Monokuma didn't spoil because it worked to their advantage. So after Kaito's trial, Kibo's had enough of this shit and goes on an absolute rampage, destroying the academy, and the survivors propose one more trial to Monokuma where they'll find enough evidence to expose the true mastermind, and he agrees with the condition that if they fail to do so, they all die. And if you thought the writing got insane earlier, you haven't seen anything yet. It turns out Rentaro knew a lot about the killing game and the ultimate hunt because he was actually a winner in a previous killing game and was rewarded with something called the Survivor's Perk that gave him a few things for his benefit, plus a map of the academy where he could see there was a hidden room in the library. And once he stumbled across the hidden door, well, you know what happens next. But what if Kaede didn't kill Rentaro at all? She definitely had the intent to kill him, but what if it turns out her plan to kill Rentaro actually failed, and she was framed by the mastermind, aka the true killer of Rentaro all along? That shot put ball Kaede intended to land on the mastermind actually missed, but the real mastermind saw all this go down from the hidden room. And before Rentaro could even get a sense of what was going on, he was killed by the mastermind who managed to slump their way back into their little hideout. And I've been holding it off long enough. The true mastermind of the killing game is finally revealed to be Tsumugi, the ultimate cosplayer. Or wait, I mean Junko, the ultimate despair. Or wait, I mean Makoto. No, Yasuhiro, Nagito, Kiyotaka.
This is the truth of this killing game. Isn't it the ultimate real fiction?
We were forced to play some fictional killing game?
Danganronpa!
Everything I just told you about the ultimate hunt and the meteorites and Kaito and everyone being ultimate students, all that, just throw it all out the window. Forget about it. None of it matters. It's all a lie. Danganronpa goes meta. Everything that happened in this series, from Trigger Happy Havoc to Killing Harmony, has been a lie. Danganronpa in the world of Danganronpa is revealed by Tsumugi to be nothing more than a fictional show. Danganronpa exists in a world that's actually revealed to be in peace. There's no wars, there's no conflicts. The only lethal thing these people see in their lives is through the reality television show Danganronpa. By the way, that V in the title doesn't stand for version 3 or video game 3 or anything like that, but 53, as in this is the 53rd season of the program. Now, this shouldn't come as a complete shock, as it's not an entirely new twist to the series. Danganronpa's gone meta before. Danganronpa being a television show has been a plot twist before. But the difference is, all that stuff happened in the fictional world of Danganronpa, the television show. In this real world we're being exposed to now, Junko doesn't exist. Despair hasn't turned the world upside down. Ultimate talents do not exist. Everyone's backstories are entirely fabricated by none other than the production company Team Danganronpa. It's really fucked up that the only real thing to come from this show are the murders that these children go through. But Danganronpa is a wildly popular show in universe. Thousands upon thousands of students apply to be part of the Danganronpa show and killing game each season, saying they would make the most gruesome murders ever for everyone to enjoy. And those few select participants have their memories wiped and are brainwashed into believing they're these super high-level talented individuals. The only person who didn't audition for the 53rd season is Kibo, the ultimate robot. That's because he's actually the camera for the audience to watch the killing game this time. Everything he sees, they see as well. And after all of this is revealed to the few survivors we have left, they become stuck on what to do next. No matter whether they live or die, the killing game would continue, and Shuichi comes to the conclusion that the only way to end Danganronpa for good is not to play. So you beat the game by not playing it at all. Literally, you don't answer any questions, don't beat any minigames. There's one sort of boss fight that plays like the argument armaments where the audience through Kibo tries to continue the show, but Shuichi and the gang successfully convince them all that this show is wrong and shouldn't exist, and the game ends with them putting a permanent end to not only the Danganronpa show, but the series as a whole. The game ends with everyone accepting their fate, rejecting both hope and despair as Kibo destroys the academy, killing everyone. Wow, that's definitely a way to go out. Roll credits. But it's not done just yet. If you wait a little bit more after the credits end and the main menu pops up again, you'll see one final bonus scene where it's revealed Shuichi, Maki, and Himiko all survive. They ponder on whether or not Tsumugi was telling the truth about their world being a lie, and the game ends on one final thought by Shuichi about the power fiction can have over reality. And that's it. I've done it. I've finally summarized the plots of every Danganronpa game. As for my thoughts, well, I've had to rewrite this part 4 times now, because each time I give my thoughts, I start rambling and lose the point, so I'm gonna keep this short. The first time I played this game, I hated this ending. I thought going meta was pointless and entirely for shock value. But, now that I've replayed through the entire series with a more critical eye and had time to sit with the ending and really process all my thoughts on it, I've kind of warmed up to it. I'll start with why I disliked this ending initially. We know it's fictional, but actually going meta and making Danganronpa a television show in the fictional real world of Danganronpa as a plot point is a gigantic middle finger to the fans. To say everything we've been through with all these characters in the series doesn't really matter because it's all part of some show, and there will be another season with another set of characters for us to fall in love with all over again. I do find that annoying as someone who considers themselves a fan of the series. The fact that in this game alone we went through all that shit with humanity being wiped out and the ultimate hunt, and then to have the game say, nah, none of that really matters, none of that was true, at the very end, yeah, that kinda pissed me off, I'm not gonna lie. I could have condensed the story down a ton too, but I wanted you to get that feeling of how everything we just went through in this game turned out to be a lie. But to be honest, I'm glad none of that was true, because it's stupid as hell leaving for Danganronpa. Fucking meteorites. Anyways, I was so upset with this ending that I was certain all this twist at the end of V3 was going to accomplish would be souring your experience replaying the series knowing that none of this matters. But I can safely say, after having just now finished all the games again, this ending really didn't ruin my enjoyment of playing through all the games again. Maybe that shock just wore off from me over time, but I don't really think it's a big deal that Danganronpa is fictional anymore. Hell, I'd still play future Danganronpa games knowing they're likely part of some show and the characters' lives are all fabricated and they're probably all terrible people deep down. So that whole criticism doesn't hold for me like it used to. As a matter of fact, I'd love it if they made Danganronpa 4 through 52 next instead of trying to carry the series onwards from here. Also, there is a point they want to make with this ending. It's not just controversial for controversy's sake. Although I did read some interviews with Kodaka and his producers talking about this game and they seem to love the fact that this ending managed to cause such a buzz, but shock wasn't their sole intent. V3 has a reason for pulling the wool over your eyes. V3 takes a step back from the whole hope-despair thing and makes the main idea of the series truth and lies, belief and doubt. There's a recurring theme of truths not being entirely what they seem, and lies having the power to change truth entirely. And this theme continues to the very end of the game where you're beat over the head with the core message of the game about the power fiction can have over reality, and not to take everything presented as truth at face value. For example, Shuichi, Maki, Himiko, and Kibo fully accept death because everything they've known since waking up at the academy has been a complete fabrication. And sure, that message fiction is strong enough to have an effect on reality might not be the boldest statement ever. I mean, it's obvious when we take in concepts from the movies we watch and apply ideals from the stories we read to our own lives, that's fiction having an effect on reality. I literally just made a video on a game that I made a personal connection with in one of my lowest moments and helped me to stop being such a cynical person. I'd consider that fiction affecting reality as well. But again, this is the point the game wanted to make, and this is how Kodaka wanted to get the point across. I guess your enjoyment of the ending can come down to one simple question. Do you think it was worth Kodaka pretty much killing the series to get the point of V3 across? And personally, yeah, I think it's worth it, but only if Spike Chunsoft fully commits to it and the series stays dead. We, the audience, literally said no more and ended Danganronpa. And I know I said I'd play through future Danganronpas, or Danganronpa 4 through 52, which I still would, but to ever bring the series back would invalidate the meta-commentary of this ending. Even leaving it open-ended with that epilogue with the teaser that maybe Tsumugi was lying about everything at the end kind of spoils the ending for me. For the first time in the Danganronpa series, I think there's a valuable lesson to be taken away from these games besides the basic never give up hope, or always look forwards towards the future, or you can do remarkable things even if you're unremarkable. I never gave a shit about the messages they tried to get across at the end of these games. The real fun of Danganronpa was always everything in between the beginning and the end. It's about the journey, you know? But now that I've had time to replay all the games, and sit with this ending in particular, I think for once the real fun is in the destination. So please, don't bring the series back. But, you know, as for my thoughts on the rest of the plot besides the ending, I think it's engaging if nothing else. It starts off balls to the walls crazy, and it did a good job of keeping my interest. There were times the pacing felt a little sluggish, but it was never so bad that I found myself skipping dialogue. Trigger Happy Havoc still has the best story as far as I'm concerned. I love the setting of Hope's Peak and unraveling the mystery behind that school. It didn't feel so large scale that you had to keep up with a million other things to know what was going on in the story. Yeah, there was the big reveal about Monokuma having taken over the world at the end of the game, but that's just it. It's at the end of the story. The only things you were concerned about in Danganronpa 1, besides the killing game, was finding out who the mastermind was and getting outside of the school. In V3, you have to figure out who the mastermind is, and how to get out of the school, and you have to figure out whatever the fuck the ultimate hunt is, and how you're all dead, but you're not actually, and what's with these meteorites, and it's all fun getting to the bottom of everything. It's just, I really preferred when the story was more contained. Oh, and one more quick thing about V3 I really like. This is not Shuichi's story. The game starts as Kaede. Kaito gets the girl, you're his sidekick. The antagonist cares more about him than he cares about you. And Kibo ends up being the ultimate hope of the game. Yeah, there's another ultimate hope in this game. Shuichi is just a really smart side character essentially, and I like that a lot. But that's pretty much everything I have to say about V3's story. Oh no, wait, I almost forgot. There is an alternate ending to this game. Do you remember that secret exit tunnel we found all the way back in the beginning of the game? Well, it turns out you can beat it, but this is hard as shit and you will die multiple times. But if you can get to the end, you'll be rewarded with a hidden scene where everyone survives and gets to see what the world looks like outside of the campus. This is before the big Tsumugi reveal though, so it's implied they see the fake destroyed Earth after it's been hit with meteorites. But hey, you can beat the game early technically, so that's cool. It's not worth it. Of course, Danganronpa games don't just finish when you beat them. There's always a fair bit of post-game content for you to enjoy after completing the main story, and V3 has my favorite bonus modes yet. The resource management mode that was in both Danganronpa 1 and 2 returns, but actually just the dating sim half of that mode where you fall in love with any character you want to. If you buy one of these love suite keys from the casino and travel with any character to the hotel, you can have intimate scenes with them where they all confess their love to you. Oh, and there's a casino and hotel in this game mode by the way. They're actually in the main game as well. You can play the slots or a few arcade games that are all based on the mini-games from the Clash Trials. I think it's pretty fun stuff. Another mode would be the Ultimate Talent Development Plan, a board game where you level up any character from the series you want to and take them into these RPG style battles. It's kind of boring, but you can land on certain squares that show all these characters interacting with each other, and I think it's pretty neat to see all the characters from 1, 2, and V3 crossover. And if you just want to do the RPG battles, there's a dungeon crawling game called Monokuma's Test where you use your level up characters from the board game mode. And with that said, I think I've brought up everything notable about V3. I like it. It's not my favorite Danganronpa, but it's another solid entry in the series. Actually, for the most part, I think this is Danganronpa at its best. Save for some of the game's art, I think it excels visually. And man, I just cannot stop thinking about how fun all of those trials were. The one thing I find myself super disappointed with as far as this game goes is the cast. A lot of the cast in V3 really does feel like filler, just there to be the next killer or victim. That's not to say these guys lack depth entirely. I just think these guys work better as a group than they do individually. I think if you wanted to do some deep analysis of all the characters, you'd have a more fun time doing it with Goodbye Despair's cast, but I'm just repeating myself at this point. That's the gist of all my thoughts on V3. So, if I had to rank the games by quality, it would look something like this. But if I had to rank them by how much I enjoyed them, it would probably look closer to this. If I can leave you with one last thought, it's that if these games seem up your alley, you should play them sometime. If you haven't played them before, there's a bunch of stuff in these games that I didn't include in these videos that could be fun to discover yourself. And you know, it's worth experiencing these games in full so you can come to your own thoughts and conclusions about all these characters and all the trials and everything else. There's a lot we could discuss. And to anyone who's already played through the series before, trust me when I say they're worth a replay. There's a lot of stuff in this series that went over my head in my first playthrough, and I see in a completely different light now. One particular example being the ending of this game. Or, you know, maybe it'll cement your hatred or love of the ending. It's worth playing again to figure out. And one more thing. Spike Chunsoft, make a fucking Danganronpa fighting game. Hey everyone, it's Cosmo. Danganronpa might be done for now, but you know, there's still games related to the series that I could talk about in the future, but I want to take a little break from all these killing games for now. The next series I talk about will be another one that I've been waiting to replay for a while. But anyways, thank you all for watching if you're still here, and I'll see you all next time.